Welcome to episode 46 of the Growing Space podcast, and welcome to a brand new month. This is the first episode that's airing in the month of August. This is a very warm and toasty time of the year, especially where I am. So if you're new to this show, I am based in Charlotte, North Carolina. We are in the USDA Agricultural Zone 8A, which means that our growing seasons are characterized by fairly mild, cool seasons and pretty hot, humid, warm seasons. So we are tucking in for a very hot, probably if it's been, if August is going to track like the other warm months that we've experienced this year, then it's also probably going to be pretty wet. We've had so much rain, and the rain is something that I will never complain about. Rain is wonderful. I think we're still officially in a drought, even though we've had tons and tons of rain. Hopefully that's moving the needle on our drought status, but I will never complain about the rain ever. But there are some things that happen to our plants, especially our annual plants, which most of our vegetables are annuals, meaning they will grow for a few months, 3 to 4 months, before they produce a seed, and then the plants will die back, return to the earth as compost, and the seeds are what carries on. Given that most of our vegetables are annuals, most of them were planted, anywhere between April, early May, mid-May. So we're going on about 3 months with a lot of these, 3, maybe even 4 months with a lot of these plants. And August is usually when we start seeing some stress. If we haven't seen it already, we really start seeing it in August. So I wanted to take some time today and share with you all 3 encouragements for summer growing. We're officially halfway through the summer season, believe it or not, and there's just so much that lies ahead in terms of harvesting and making sure that our plants can produce as much as we want from them in the few months that we have, or the few weeks that we have left with them before we have the invitation to plant for fall. So believe it or not, I know I just mentioned fall, but fall is a lot closer than we might think. And fall planting is even sooner than the official start of the fall season. So in this episode today, I'm going to share with you these 3 summer encouragements for the second half of our hot, humid summer. And I'm also going to do a quick little intro to companion planting. This is a topic that comes up all the time as something that people are interested in learning more about. So I'm going to do a quick intro, kind of a companion planting 101 towards the end of this episode. And I think this will be a good introduction, good segue as well as I begin sharing more of our fall plant families. And I'll go into more detail as we go through the episode, but let's just go ahead, jump in, get started. Welcome to the Growing Space podcast. I'm your host, Farmer Erin, owner of the Patio Farmer, and I believe that no matter what size space you have, you can grow food at home. Tune in every Tuesday as I share my best tips, tricks, and encouragement for tending to homegrown edible plants. I'm here to support your food growing journey. The Growing Space podcast is sponsored by Plant Club by the Patio Farmer. Plant Club by the Patio Farmer is a monthly subscription service I started in 2020. It's a membership-based opportunity to take your growing journey to the next level. With 4 different membership options, you get to decide the amount and kind of support that's right for you. All Plant Club members receive access to my online community through a platform called Circle. Having access to this platform allows members to share pictures, ask questions, celebrate harvest, and get to know each other. All Plant Club members also have access to free seeds each month, along with information on how to plant and tend to their crops, with seeding instructions and downloadable resources from the Patio Farmer's resource library. Membership starts at just $14 a month. Join Plant Club today by visiting my website, thepatiofarmer.com/membership. All right. So jumping in and talking about these 3 summer encouragements for you. We grow plants at home for a variety of different reasons, right? I mean, I did a whole episode on this and I'll link it. I'll put a little reminder in the show notes for you for this episode. All the different reasons why we might choose to grow food at home. There's so many, and it's different. It's personal for every individual, right? But I mean, I think a universal truth for all of us who are growing food at home is that we grow food at home because we want to eat the food that we've grown. And there can be several things, several components, several factors that are just out of our control. Weather is definitely one of them. We can do our best to help control pest and disease pressure, but sometimes that's even beyond our control. And so there's just a lot of different factors. And this summer in particular, like I had a feeling at the beginning of summer, or actually towards the end of spring, that we were in store for kind of a hectic, crazy, cuckoo summer. It's really ringing true. I mean, between the hot, dry heat that we had earlier this year and then followed by all of this inundation that we've been experiencing, and there's been a lot of pests, there's been a lot of bugs out there that are happy and thriving, and our plants are also trying to thrive while they're being feasted on, and disease as well. That comes with a lot of the heat and humidity and moisture. And so that's just what we're seeing. It's all kind of catching up. And that's what we're seeing now in August. So, my first encouragement for you, and if you are brand new to growing food, this will be helpful. These encouragements will be helpful. If you're a couple seasons in, these encouragements will be helpful, or at least uplifting, reassuring that you are doing the things that you can do to best support your plants. But sometimes there's just things beyond our control, right? Okay, so the first encouragement that I want to share with you is that pests, big pests, bugs, critters, pests and disease, like fungal disease, bacterial disease, they are 100% expected this time of year. It's, whenever we are growing plants, whenever we are, engaging with soil, organic matter, and cultivating parts of an ecosystem, there's so many factors there, and there's so many different components and things that you need, right? You need these things to be successful. And then sometimes these ecosystems encourage or attract other members that can be kind of frustrating to deal with. But, as you're growing food, and heck, just as a human being, you are part of nature. Right? You are part of nature and the natural world, and you're growing something to consume it, and there's something else that wants to consume it too. That's just how things work. That's how nature is. And so it is, just rest assured, if you feel like you are dealing with so many pest and disease issues in your space right now, just rest assured, because it is totally normal, totally to be anticipated. And you shouldn't feel like because you have all of these pests and diseases that you are maybe failing. That's a word that I really hate to use, but in this context, it's not, you're not failing. You're not failing. It is just nature. And so these pests and diseases, they are part of nature, just as you are, just as your plant is. And there are definitely ways that you can improve your interaction. Of course, I'm speaking from a very human-centric perspective here as a human. So there are things that you can do, different practices, different products that you can use to help, mitigate or slow the spread of pest and disease. But they're part of nature just as you are. So don't worry about it. too much. Don't let it stress you out too terribly much, especially this time of year. So, and this is an encouragement that I've been giving all of my clients that I've been seeing, and I've seen several this week and last week who just, they were feeling so discouraged and, and feeling like the challenges were superior this season. And I just reminded them, I said, it's okay. Like, this has been a really stressful summer for our plants. There's been a lot of factors out of our control, like I've already said, and this is just how nature works. So, and that kind of seems to help it when we're growing food at home. We're in our space, and unless you're going to a bunch of different growing spaces like I am, or if you have a lot of friends who are growing food and you're able to see what's going on in their spaces, then you're able to compare. But if you're not able to do that and you're having all of these issues, you could be thinking to yourself, oh my gosh, like, why are all of my plants failing? What did I do wrong? Sometimes nature just does, right? And we're along for the ride. So if you are experiencing a lot of pest and disease issues, don't worry, it's totally normal. This is an exceptional year and it's okay. Okay? The next encouragement for summer plant care, summer plant maintenance is that, and I mentioned this in the intro to the episode today, but most of our edible plants, most of our vegetables are reseeding annuals. And this just means that the plants typically start from seed, and they like to grow for a short period of time, usually about 3 to 4 months, and then they produce a new round of seed, and that's, that new round of seed is what carries on to produce next season's crop, right? So 3 to 4 months. 3 to 4 months is the ideal lifespan or duration of your seasonal vegetables, your annual vegetables. So 3 to 4 months, for a cucumber plant is great. That's the ideal. 3 to 4 months for your squash and zucchini, your tomatoes, your peppers, your eggplant. If you get 4 months out of these plants, then that is fantastic, and you should be very proud of yourself. It's also encouraging, I find, to just keep in mind that limitation of time. Right? You only have a few months ideally, so make the most of it. Kind of with that, in my climate, at least, we are able to grow food all year round. So once the time is up for one season's plants, there's a new season right around the corner, or sometimes as soon as we pull out our plants from one season, it's time to plant for another season. That's the ideal rotation. So just keeping that in mind too, this time of year, what I'm encouraging all of my clients to do is to just harvest. Harvest. Whatever your plants have available to give you, just make sure you're staying on top of harvesting. And that's where you want to focus your energy. Earlier in the summer season, we're super concerned with plant health because our plants are little babies at that point. We want to be super mindful of any pest issues, super mindful of any disease issues. But at this point in the season, we're halfway through the summer season. If you planted your summer crops in April or May, then you're on month 3 or 4. And at this point, you should just be focused on keeping your plants healthy enough. Like maybe you feed them this month with a nice either liquid or dry granular plant food, an organic one if you can. I'll put some links in the show notes for different suggestions there. But maybe feed them a little bit, give them a little push, a little nudge. And then most of your time, as I said, should just be focused on harvesting, pulling all of your plants, but don't worry if they're looking crazy or looking stressed, because you're close to the end of their true growth period, right? Growing season. So yeah, just keeping in mind that these plants, these edible plants that we're growing are annuals, and keeping that time limitation on the back of your mind, and just maybe setting a goal for yourself to make the most of it. right? Just harvest all that you possibly can before it's time to switch to a new season. So the third encouragement I have for you for your summer plants is to remember that each space is different. Each plant is different. Each person is different, right? So what works for you in your space or what doesn't work for you in your space may work or not work in your neighbor's space or your friend down the street or your friend across town or your coworker who lives 30 minutes away from you. Like, just because something works for you, it doesn't mean it's going to work for someone else, and vice versa. If something doesn't work for you, it could easily work for someone else. So just keep that in mind. Explore, practice, try different things. You want to find a system that's going to work for you and that's going to work for your plants. I'm a huge proponent of trial and error. Right? Try something, see how it goes, learn, observe, take notes. However you like to take notes, you can either write it down or record a voice memo or just make a few notes in your phone, or you can just make mental notes. But just being observant and paying attention to the things and the practices, the products, the plants that work for you and the ones that don't. Another thing that I find really encouraging and really lovely about our plants is that they're always there for us if we want them to be, right? So if you've had a really stressful summer and you're kind of feeling like, you need a break or you're ready for a fresh start, then it's right around the corner for you. If you want to take a break in the fall, you certainly can. There are things that you can do, restorative things that you can do for your space while you rest. And I recorded an episode last year just on that subject. So I'll link that in the show notes for you if that seems to resonate. But then if you're, still motivated, but you just feel like these plants are tired and you really just want a fresh start, you don't want to wait until next year, you don't have to. You can plant some things in the fall and kind of have that fresh start, that reset for a new growing season. While each space is different, each person is different, each plant type is different, there is usually, what I have found is that every season, spring, summer, and fall, there is usually one crop that more or less universally, I don't like speaking in absolutes, but widely excels and does really, really well for just about everyone who is growing this. And this year, that crop has been cucumbers. It has been a beautiful cucumber season here in Charlotte, North Carolina. All of the cucumber plants that I have seen are thriving. They're staying fairly healthy throughout the season and just super productive. I mean, cucumbers left and right. I harvested this week alone in my space. I think I pulled 7 or 8 cucumbers from 2 plants that I have. It's crazy. So cucumbers are definitely having a bumper time right now. On the flip side, there's always something that does not thrive, that does not do well on kind of a very broad spectrum across the board. It just does not thrive. And it could be a variety of reasons. It could be the weather impacts. It could be timing for when things were planted. It could be a pest issue or disease issue. And this year, that crop has been summer squash and zucchini. Almost every single space that I've been in has had issues with summer squash and zucchini, and pretty severe issues too. I mean, I have planted and pulled so many summer squash this season. It started with the vine borer. So the vine borer was out early. This is a pest, a very common pest on your squash and zucchini plants. And she was out. And once you notice vine borer damage, it is very, very difficult to recoup the plant from dying. It's tragic. It really is. And so I have seen vine borer damage on just about every single squash plant I have seen this year. And as soon as I see the damage or even preemptively, I will treat them. And even the ones that are treated weekly, have succumbed to the vine borer. And then the ones who haven't are the ones that are like slowly dying. Sounds so sad, but it's true. The ones that are slowly dying because of this vine borer are also falling ill to the Mexican bean beetle, which despite its name, it doesn't just like beans, it also loves summer squash. And I actually think these pests are kind of cute, but they're very voracious and very frustrating to have on our plants. They eat the leaves. There's just been so many different things that have been affecting our summer squash and zucchini. If you live in the Charlotte area and you have harvested any squash or zucchini, pat yourself on the back. Congratulations. I'm proud of you. But, keeping that in mind too, like there's always going to be something that does well, like superiorly well, like just big old grin on your face. You're so proud of your blank in the season. And then there's always going to be something that just does not do well. And it could be different for different people. Could be, we could have themes across the region. To summarize, the 3 main summer encouragements that I wanted to share with you are 1, it's totally normal, totally expected for you to see significant pest and disease issues this time of year in your space. 2, our vegetable plants, they are annuals. They grow for a short period of time. And your goal whenever you're growing them is to make the most of it and pull as many harvests from those plants as you can this time of year. Rock and roll. Just focus on picking, right? And then 3rd is that every space is different, every plant is different, every season is different. And you have the opportunity to grow and learn from your plants year round or as often as you want. You can take breaks. It is your growing practice. So find what works for you and find what works for your plants in your space. If you are local to Charlotte and you're interested in growing fall veggies and you're a little confused as to what all you can grow in the fall, or maybe you want to just talk through the summer season with me, or you want to discuss your plans for the fall and put together a game plan. So my consultation calendar is open and I'm currently accepting new bookings for the fall. So check the show notes and I'll put the link there if you would like to schedule a consultation. I can also do consultations virtually if you do not live in the Charlotte area. So if you think that would be helpful for you and your space, just check for the link in the show notes for how to schedule a consultation for fall, and we'll put together a little game plan for you. All right? Okay, sounds good. Now, moving on and doing a quick little intro to companion planting. You ready? Let's do it. Okay, so now I just want to spend a little bit of time doing a quick companion planting introduction for you. And so the first thing to know about companion planting is that it's totally optional. It's not a required thing to do in your growing space, but it can be super helpful practice in accomplishing 1, 2, or all 3 of the following goals. Just a quick definition for the term companion planting. Companion planting is when you plant specific plants. They can be edible, they could be medicinal, they could be ornamental, but you plant specific plants next to other plants with one of these 3 goals in mind, or maybe all 3 of these goals in mind. So the 3 goals that you could be working to achieve by companion planting are 1, deterring pests from your space. You could also be companion planting in order to increase the amount of pollinators in your space, or you could be practicing companion planting as a way of increasing or promoting soil nutrients and building soil chemistry. There is some anecdotal research that kind of goes along with that, saying that the flavor profile of certain things can be better if you plant them next to other things, specifically like tomatoes and basil. When you plant them together, they both tend to taste better, but that feels a little suggestive. So 1, you can be deterring pests from your space. 2, you're attracting pollinators. And 3, you are increasing or improving the soil chemistry of your plants, where your plants are planted. So some great companion plants to have, kind of a short list of things that make great companion plants are, first of all, any flowers. Any flowers are going to automatically bring in pollinators to your space. Also, like any perennial plants that produce flowers, like a lot of your herbs, culinary herbs, will also produce flowers that the bees just love. They do. They love little flowers on herbs. So any flowers are great. You can grow edible flowers if you would like, medicinal flowers, so things like echinacea, calendula, bachelor's button, marigolds, nasturtiums. All of those are great flowers that are also edible or medicinal in nature. And of course, there's tons of other flowers that you can grow in and around your edible plants. Planting things like herbs, especially thyme, oregano, rosemary, lavender, and mint. But fair warning, whenever you're growing mint, it needs to go in a pot. Don't put mint in a raised bed. Don't put mint directly in the ground unless you really, 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 really love mint and you want it there forever, because it will be there forever, despite all of your efforts. Herbs, as well as onions, garlic, shallots, green onions, scallions, and hot peppers, or anything that's a little spicy or a little peppery, even like radishes. Those are great for deterring pests. And generally speaking, when I say pests in terms of companion planting, I do mean the larger pests like squirrels and bunnies and deer. So all of those plants can be fantastic protectors of your, cucumbers and squash and tomatoes and peppers or sweet peppers, right? Can be great protectors of those plants. So those are some of my favorite companion plants. And just to give you an idea, so of, like companion planting in action, if you will. And I can give you an example from my growing space. I'll kind of describe my growing space to you. Fun fact, though, if you're interested in seeing videos of me in my growing space from this summer, I would encourage you to check the link in the show notes for my Patio Farmer Summer Diaries mini series that I am doing all throughout the summer. This week I uploaded week 7. So there are 7 videos, and these are all videos from my growing space. You'll see me in all of them. You'll see all of my plants, and I'll tell you what's going on, what I'm working on, what my challenges are, and kind of what I have planned for the week ahead in my own growing space. So if you're interested in that, check out that link. It's great. It's only $15 to get all of that access. One time $15 fee gets you all of that video content. And you also get some written content from me as well. So just to give you an idea of my own growing space, we have an acre, but I have about 1/8 of that space. And it's mainly wooded, to be honest. I have the sunniest spot in our yard where my plants are, but it's still wooded, it's still shaded, and we have so many birds, we have so many squirrels, we have bunnies, we have chipmunks, we don't have deer, we do have possums, and who else do we have? Cats, but they're kind of welcomed because they eat some of those other things, right? Yeah. We have lizards and frogs and tons of bugs. I have a lot of my perennials. I have a lot of herbs. I have a lot of flowers kind of mixed in with everything in my pots and in my raised bed. So there's a lot going on, and because I have a lot going on, it distracts the little critters, right? Or it brings in the good critters. So I've got lots of bugs that like to visit my space. In one of my videos, I gave a glimpse of the beneficial period, which is every afternoon between like 1 p.m. and 5 p.m. I just don't go out to my plants because it's not the time for me to be out there. It's time for all of the beneficial insects, my pollinators, honeybees, bumblebees, dragonflies. They're all out, and I feel like I'm in the way. So I give them their space, but I rarely have an issue with any pests to the point where I lose an entire crop. And the birds, the squirrels, the bunnies, they don't eat my stuff. And I really do feel like it's because I have so many things interplanted and close enough together. Like everything has its own space, even though right now you would see all of my plants and you'd be like, oh my gosh, how can they even see sunlight? But when they are first started, they have plenty of resources, and they still do have those resources. They're just much bigger plants right now. I really do think that I am so successful with keeping the pests away because of how I use companion planting. Every single one of my raised beds has companion plants in it. And I just feel like it's a great practice to do, especially if you live in an area where you have a lot of wildlife, or you have a lot of bugs, or you have whatever it is. You're trying to increase your pollinators. You're trying to deter pests. So give that a noodle. I'll be sharing a lot more about companion planting in the next couple of episodes. So just to give you a little preview of the next few weeks, I am going to be sharing 4 more plant families with you. And if you're new to this podcast, then throughout the whole year, I've been doing a mini series called Meet the Plant Families. I did some in the spring. I did a couple in the summer. And now as we're leading up to fall, I have 4 more to share with you. And the first 2 are fantastic companion plants or companion planting families. So next week, I am going to share with you the mint family. We'll talk about all of those little plants, why they make such wonderful additions to our spaces for all the different reasons. And then the next week, I'm going to be talking about the alliums. And then the next 2, I'm going to be sharing with you. One of them is the Chenopodiaceae plant family, or the goosefoot plant family. Several edible plants in there. And then we'll also be talking about the citrus plant family. So that gives you kind of a preview of the next month ahead as we lead up to the fall season, and what I'll be sharing in the month of August. If you have listened to this podcast in the past, then you'll know that at the end of every episode, I'd like to share a fun fact or a little tidbit, a little morsel of information as we sign off. Also, for those of you who have been listening, you'll know that my partner Marshall got me this really sweet pollinator calendar. And every month there's a new pollinator and a new little fact to share about all of the amazing little critters and bugs that give us our food. Right? Thank you, pollinators. Forever love you. And when I flipped the calendar page to August, I had the biggest smile on my face. So the calendar for this month is talking all about figs. Yeah. Do you know where I'm going with this? So fig trees, in order to produce a fig, require a little wasp, very small little wasp, to crawl into the fig before it forms. I think it's called an inverted stem, which is where the fig will ultimately grow. But this little wasp will crawl in there, little mama wasp. She crawls in there and she lays her eggs. And then as she's doing that, she's pollinating the plant, right? So she's pollinating it, and then her little eggs hatch and her baby wasps emerge. So don't worry, when you're eating a fig, you're not eating a wasp. There's no wasp in there. They have vacated. But the act of the wasp going in, laying her eggs, those eggs hatching, all of that activity is pollinating the fig tree. And that's how you get each individual fig. Isn't that sweet? Now, these aren't like big, massive wasps that you see. They're actually quite small, but they're pollinators. Wasps, in general, even the big scary ones, are wonderful critters to have around. Not only do they pollinate, but they also eat bugs. So I love seeing wasps. I don't like when they get close to me, and they do look a little scary, but I love seeing them in my growing space. So maybe that changes how you see and interact with wasps near you. I mean, safely, from a safe distance and all. Okay, well, thank you for tuning in to this week's episode, and I will see you back here next week as we pick up with our Meet the Plant Families mini-series, and we talk all about those beautiful mint family members. Have a great week. Thanks again for tuning into this week's episode of the Growing Space podcast. I hope that you learned something new and that you were able to take this new information home with you and implement into your growing journey and into your growing space. As always, I am here to support you and your food growing journey. If you'd like to learn more about the different services and resources and membership programs that I run through the Patio Farmer, please check out my website, thepatiofarmer.com. You can also follow me on social media. I am on Facebook, Instagram, and oh my gosh, most recently, TikTok. Wow. I know. Here I am. Patio Farmer is on TikTok. It's very exciting. If you enjoyed today's episode, please give it a like or a rating or a review if you want. Maybe share a little comment about your favorite part of the episode. Share it with a friend. The more interactions I get with my little podcast online, the more I'm able to help people just like you in their food growing journeys. As always, thanks for being here, and I will see you again next week.